as okay, we're good. Appreciate that one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mental Health Matters with Dr. Matt Glowiak. It is such a pleasure to be here speaking with all of you today. My hope is that in this debut episode, to be able to engage each and every one of you, to be able to participate, because this is a show that's created for you and by you. What do I mean by that? Well, here's what I'm talking about. One of the things I've noticed going throughout my mental health career, which I'll discuss a little bit with you in a few moments, is that each and every one of us, at one time or another, has some type of issue that we struggle with. Whether that's going through some major type of life adjustment, such as beginning college, beginning a new job, having a child leave the house, the birth of a new child, or going through a divorce or losing a loved one. The reality of the situation is at some time or another, all of us need some type of assistance. Throughout my history of working in the mental health counseling field, I've been able to have the opportunity to work through a bunch of different areas. For instance, as a clinician, my first full-time job as a clinician, I work with individuals who are struggling with opioid use disorder. For those of you familiar with the opioid epidemic, individuals who were prescribed at one time painkillers progress into other types of drugs, we talk about Vicodin, OxyContin, Percocets, and getting all the way up to heroin. And these individuals who I worked with taught me some very valuable lessons. They taught me that individuals who get to this point in their life, they struggle. Every single one of them I met had some type of tragic past, perhaps were abused as a child, perhaps lost a loved one, perhaps lost a job, so on and so forth, or were struggling with some other type of mental health disorder. And it was my pleasure to be able to work with each and every one of them and hear their stories. As a professor, I've been fortunate enough to be able to have the opportunity to teach students, those students who are interested in becoming counselors like myself. And guess what? What's really interesting is even for us counselors in training, and myself included, we all have different types of issues that we have to face on a daily basis. And I'm sure throughout the show I'll be sharing some of those with you as well. I'm also one of the co-founders and co-clinical directors of Counseling Speaks, a group practice located in Chicago, Park Ridge, and Lake Forest, Illinois. And there we work with a variety of different individuals who come in for counseling, just like anybody else, who perhaps some of them may have some type of mental health disorders, but more often than not, a lot of them are struggling with the same type of everyday things that you and I are struggling with. And that's what this show is about. So let me go back to the beginning. My name is Matt Glowiak. I was actually born and raised in Bolingbrook, Illinois, and here I am again raising my own family in this community. I went to Jonas Salk Elementary School, went to Hubert Humphrey Middle School, and went to Bolingbrook High School. Go Raiders. Throughout that time when I was in middle school and high school, I had different opportunities where I was a member of the peer mediations. And what peer mediations was is it was a group of us, in middle school and high school who were trained by one of the teachers or perhaps a social worker to be able to help remediate different fights that were happening with the students who were there. And one of the things I learned in that was being able to hear different sides, realizing that there's always a different story for each person. One of the things that we have to understand is that no two people live the exact same experience as anybody else. That is, I can tell you, something, one person is going to like it, another person's not going to like it. For instance, we could talk about our favorite baseball team. Hey, in Chicago, how great is it that we could choose between some teams? You have the Chicago White Sox, you have the Chicago Cubs. Some people love the Chicago White Sox, that's me, go Sox. Some people love the Chicago Cubs. Some people like both of them. But at the same time, too, it's very few and far between that we see people who do enjoy both of them. And their experience with it may be something completely different. For instance, some people may have grown up on the South Side, and that's why they like the White Sox. Some people on the North Side, and that's why they like the Cubs. Some people will take it to an extreme that's ever so intense. Take a look at these football games or basketball games and things like that. Again, we take a look at professional sports, and people have completely different feelings about it. And hopefully that's something that you can relate to here as well. As I went through my education at the University of Illinois, I ended up finding myself into being interested in an undergraduate in psychology program. One of the things I always knew I wanted to be was a doctor. I was originally wanting to be a pediatrician. However, one thing led to another, and I was told to follow my path. And where did my path lead me? To psychology. I absolutely love helping other people. I love hearing people's stories. I love sharing an empathic ear and being able to direct people to where they can find the help that they need. And then that led me into graduate school, where I earned my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and then my doctorate in counselor education and supervision. Like I said, my first full-time job that I had was working with opioid use disorder at a methadone clinic. And then after that, I became a full-time professor, originally with Benedictine University in their Master's of Clinical Psychology program, and then now with Southern New Hampshire University teaching their Master's of Clinical Mental Health program. And also, working with our practice. So one of the things I really want to do with this show is to be able to destigmatize mental health. Oftentimes when we go out there and we think about things and we talk about mental health, people immediately jump to the term, oh, do you think I'm crazy? What's wrong with me? Oh, that's not me. And we get so uptight and so upset and so concerned about it, and we feel like other people are judging us. If you have a cough and you believe you have bronchitis, you probably wouldn't feel quite so reluctant to actually go into the doctor and get it checked out, would you? You go in for an annual physical, do you not? Well, maybe not all of us, but hopefully you're doing that and taking care of yourself. Well, mental health is the same exact thing. We need to make sure that we get our regular checkups, and that we do, when we're having some type of issue, be able to have a third-party individual to be able to discuss it with. Because like I said, life is dynamic. There are things that are going on throughout our life where at one point or another, we may be able to use a little bit of additional assistance. One of the things I really like talking about with my clients, and we'll discuss here as we continue with the future episodes, are the different domains of wellness. And some of the domains are as follows. First, we talk about our emotional well-being. We like to talk about the individual who wears his emotions on his sleeve, the individual who can fly off the handle, or we also have the stoic individual who shares absolutely no emotions. In some cultures, it may be taboo to talk about different emotions. Some individuals may not be in tune with their emotions at all. We talk about emotional intelligence, and it is something that does exist. When we sit there and think about it, a lot of us break things down into terms such as mad, glad, happy, sad, but it's way more dynamic than that. There is a lot more than the shades of gray, and we have that whole entire spectrum of colors that we can take a look at. And for each of us, although we may not be in tune with our emotions, they are there. And there's something that the more in tune with them we are, the healthier we can be. Have you ever heard of something called the mind-body connection? Well, we can actually tie spiritual into there too, and we'll talk about that as well. But do believe that things that happen to us when we're feeling emotionally distraught can actually lead to different physiological symptoms. For instance, irritable bowel syndrome can be something that results from somebody feeling highly anxious. Did you know you can actually get dandruff from feeling anxious as well? Also, acne, that was a great one for me. I used to be the guy that before a big test or going to homecoming, prom, big band concert, usually get the big shiner right here. But it can lead to a bunch of other different conditions as well, such as headaches, you can get diarrhea, you can get shaky hands, you can feel faint, lack of energy, and so on and so forth. So oftentimes, by getting in tune with your emotions, you can find yourself in a much better place physically as well. Something to think about. Another domain of wellness that we could talk about is occupational. Occupational is something that we need to think about, because did you realize that between the ages of 22 and 60, we spend about 60% of our waking hours at work? That's correct. 60% of our waking hours are at work. Now, one of the things that we also say is that job stress is the easiest to alleviate. How is that? Well, you can alleviate it by leaving the job, finding another one. But I know for most of us, it's not that simple, especially when you've been at a place for multiple years, decades, you're counting on that pension, you're vested in your 401k, you have a family to feed, you have seniority and so on. And picking up and starting all over again can be something that's ever so stressful. However, we really do need to think about the stressors that we can get on us occupationally, because 60% of our time, if we're spending it at work, at a job that's toxic and we don't like, we feel as though we're underemployed, we feel as though we're being taken advantage of, or maybe we're being bullied at the workplace, that type of thing can really create a very difficult 40% of the rest of your time. And believe it or not, if you don't get the help moving into retirement, you're going to be a pretty anxious individual, or perhaps depressed going into that as well. Another domain of wellness that we talk about can be financial. Now, that's a really great one. Being a guy who recently finished his doctorate, I can tell you that financial can be quite the stressor, having those student loans, and also raising a family, having to pay the bills, having a mortgage, and so on. It's something that can be very overwhelming. All of us at one time or another face financial stress. And it's something that not only do we talk about, dealing if you do have a personal accountant or somebody who's helping you out with your finances, great, but, one time or another we may face some type of difficulties. All the time, the car breaks down, washing machine breaks down, you have hospital bills, and that does lead to stress. There are many families out there who every single day are worrying about how they're going to be able to feed the family and how they're going to manage to pay the bills. You're not alone. Other type of stressors that we can face are those of the interpersonal. Interpersonal, what I'm talking about, are relationships. Our relationships are so important. Guess what? We don't exist in isolation. Introverts and extroverts alike, we do depend on one another to be able to function in society. Right now, as I'm making this video, I have 2 individuals who are videotaping me, other people who are in the camera room, getting everything set up. I cannot do this alone. And we can't do most of the things that we do alone either. Relationships are one of the most important things in our life. But also, guess what? The number one cause of stress is issues in our interpersonal relationships. So it's very important that we do consider, what we put into those. Are you in a toxic relationship? If you are, is there anything that could be done to try to fix that relationship? If there's not, would it make more sense for you to try to move the other way? I know it can be much more difficult when we talk about familiar stressors. I love that saying, you could choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. This is true. However, you can choose how you respond to these individuals. And one of the things I could tell you is being a counselor, one of the biggest stressors in my life was trying to go and be able to help every single person in the family and be able to listen to everything they had to say and provide my advice, but have it fall on deaf ears. And I think that happens to a lot of us as well. So that's one of the things that we need to talk about here as well. And relationships don't just exist in our personal lives, but also in our professional lives, getting along with our colleagues and coworkers. If you're at school, getting along with your peers, other students and professors, going out in your everyday life, going into the store, being able to get along with people. If somebody cuts you in line, how do you respond to that? Somebody comes close to sideswiping your car, how do you respond to that? These things are ever so important. Another thing to consider is religious and spiritual wellness. Religious and spiritual wellness is something that I feel isn't talked about nearly as much as it should be today. We talk about our core beliefs. Core beliefs are the things that lead toward the way that we think. Core beliefs lead to thoughts, lead to behaviors. So to a great extent, our core beliefs that stem from religion or spirituality are something that guide our everyday behaviors. Now, if this is something that we truly believe in, and it's something that's healthy, teaching us to be a good person, do unto others as you want to have done unto you, and things like that, well, then we're in great shape. However, if it's not, it can lead to all sorts of different problems, as we've seen. And also, sometimes when people become strayed from the religion or spiritual beliefs, they can begin to feel lost, feel as though they're an outcast, feel as though they're somebody who just doesn't belong. Sometimes when we hit a strand of bad luck, and I don't say luck often because I'm one who believes in fortune. However, when we hit a bad period in our lives, sometimes we sit there and believe that it's due to things that we've done in the past. We feel as though we deserve these types of things to happen to us, that there's somebody looking down on us and making these negative things happen. If you do believe that, it's something that you should talk about, and that could be an area of wellness that significantly impacts you into a negative direction. Some of the other things, too, that we could talk about are as far as educational well-being. Do you feel as though you actually went into school and did the thing that you wanted to pursue? Were you able to get the degree that you wanted? Again, financial can bleed right into that area because oftentimes we can struggle to be able to afford school. However, I will say that there are many different programs out there that may be more or less affordable for you. I think one of the stigmas in terms of having to go to the best university possible is one of those things that's starting to change as we see more community schools, we see more of the schools online, we see individuals from some of the no-name universities doing really great things. I'm a person who believes it's not so much about the name of the university that's on the degree, but it's the name of the person that's on the degree. It's about how much effort you put into it, what you do. It's not, so when it comes to that, it's about being the best you can be in anything that it is that you're doing. Any type of field that you're in, if you put forth the effort, and you try to make yourself great, and you do become great, you can be somebody who is highly successful. Talk about physical wellness. Physical wellness, yes, it does tie into mental health. Just think about it. If you're an individual who's struggling with physical illnesses, somebody who has some type of developmental disorder, an individual who's dealing with some type of disease, struggling with cancer, you have a broken bone, some other type of disability, this can be something that weighs down on you a lot. We talk about the symptoms of major depressive disorder, and what are they? Well, individuals who feel like not getting out of bed or perhaps can't get out of bed for 2 or more weeks, individuals who constantly feel fatigued and are extremely tired, individuals who feel withdrawn from family and friends, withdrawn from work, feel down about themselves, feel hopeless, can't see a brighter tomorrow. Well, aren't these the type of things that we start to feel when we're feeling physically unwell? I know when I'm feeling sick, I want to lay in bed all day and I don't want to go anywhere or do anything. And then I start to feel worse and worse and worse about that. Being a little kid who has a broken bone, you break your leg for the summer and all your friends are out playing, that type of thing can be very upsetting, and we sit there and consider that. So how does that physical part tie into the mental wellness? And these are just a few of many different domains that we can talk about. Now, each of these domains exist in isolation. However, they also intermix to make the entire person. And what I'm trying to get at is this. Now, let's suppose in life I have a situation where I lose a loved one, somebody who's very close to me. Emotionally, I'm going to feel distraught. I'm going to be very upset, not going to feel good. And when I'm feeling emotionally distraught, it's going to tie into my physical wellness. Again, I might start getting stomach aches, might get the jitters in my stomach, might start to have increased blood pressure and so on. And then it might start to bleed into my interpersonal relationships because emotionally I'm not feeling well. I'm withdrawing from other individuals. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going out. I'm not socializing. I may start to lose my faith in my religion because why would an all-loving power do something like this to me and take this person away? And then the struggles continue to go on further and further and further. So this is something that each of us should be considering, whether on a daily basis, a weekly basis, so on, something that we need to take a look at and something that I hope that you're considering as we go along with this. So what I'm really trying to get at here is that mental wellness is something that each of us can be speaking about and taking a look at all the time. I find it funny. One of my a leader in psychology, positive psychology, Martin Seligman, I love he opened up this one TED Talk, and he was discussing how individuals never come to a psychologist or a counselor because they want to make their lives better. People oftentimes come when they're in the state of crisis. Something terrible happened, they're not feeling well, they've been dealing with this for years. They say, "Doctor, I've got all these issues, I want to come in, please help fix me, please help fix me." Why don't people who are doing well ever come in and say, "Hey doc, my life is doing well right now, but I want to make it great. Let's make it better. Let's go from surviving to thriving." We oftentimes don't see that. And another thing that we see is oftentimes people come in perhaps experiencing suicidal ideation, maybe having past suicide attempts. They come in, speak with a professional and get to a point of not feeling suicidal, but feeling just blah. I no longer want to hurt myself anymore, but I still don't feel good. There's so many things that we could be doing and we could be working on to be able to try to get to that better place. And that's another thing that I really want this show to be about. I want it to be about going from a point, if you're in a bad place, being able to get to a better place where you're able to function. If you're in a better place, I want to be able to help you get to a great place because we can always be striving towards something better. Like I said, our life is dynamic and things are always going to happen to us. However, it's up to us to be able to take control and responsibility of the things that do happen in our lives. One of the things I think is really great to take a look at, and I hate to throw these terms out, but Glasser's choice theory. What's choice theory? The choice theory is that we always have a choice. We have a choice in the way that we feel, we have a choice in the way that we think, and we have a choice in the way that we respond to other people. Now, there are two different types of people out there, and we can also take a look at everything in the in-between. We have people who have an external locus of control. What that means is these people take a look at the outside, and the world happens to them. Nothing is their fault. They take absolutely no responsibility for it, and what happens just happens. Then we have people with an internal locus of control. These are the individuals who take accountability for what it is that they do in their lives. Now, the reality is that bad things do unfortunately happen to good people all the time. We can't take that away. However, when we live a righteous lifestyle, when we take care of ourselves, when we do good things for other people, and we put good out into the world, it's much more likely that we're going to do well and that better things are going to happen than if we don't. You know, I always laugh with my students. Some of them feel so stressed out about a test, they ask me, you know, does it even matter if I study for this test? I don't think I'll get an A if I study anyway. And I say to them, well, you know, it's up to you whether or not you study for the test. You know, the choice is 100% yours. You know, maybe you'll study and you won't get an A. You know, maybe you don't study, you still probably won't get an A, but one thing I can guarantee you is if you don't study, there's a much more likely chance that you're not going to get one of the better grades that you're looking for. And that's so true in life. It's just like jobs. We want to take a look at a job search. It's much more likely if you apply to 50 places that you're going to get a job than if you apply to 5 places. It's much more likely that if you surround yourself by good people in your life who are people who care about you, vested in your well-being, are empathic, are listening to you, that you're going to probably get good input back. These are people who are going to be there to support you. These are going to be people who you can go to whenever you have times of need. It's much more likely that when you spend time with your children, you help raise them well, teach them right from wrong, that they're going to end up being good children and they're going to role model. You know, they're going to look up to you as a role model and mimic some of the good behaviors that you have there as well. Again, the world is a product of what we put into it. And it's so important that we make the choice on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and so on, to take care of ourselves. Well-being is something that is an active process. It's not something that happens to us. You know, I laugh. I have this weird conception of time. It's very bizarre. I feel like every single day of my life is the longest day in the world. I don't know what it is. It's almost like Venus. I don't know if you're familiar with Venus, where a day is actually longer than a year. Very interesting type thing. But I actually feel like that's my life. A day is the longest day of my life. The weeks go by pretty normally. The months go by pretty quickly. And every year feels like a year. And that's because, you know, every single day there's so many things I've got going on. You know, get up in the morning, get the kids ready, got to prep all my emails, going to work, got to pay the bills, got to come back, eat dinner, work out, take care of myself, do all these different things. And there's just so much that's going on on a daily basis. Sometimes it's hard to keep on top of. Sometimes it can be really stressful. And guess what? The work is going to continue going on. We have to take a moment out to take care of ourselves. 9 times out of 10, okay, I have no research to back this up, but 9 out of 10 people I actually ask, I say, what would you do if you had an additional hour in the day? They don't tell me they'd sleep. They don't tell me they'd do something to take care of themselves. They tell me that they would get more work done. But the reality is that the work is always there, and there's always more things that you can be doing. So taking a moment out to take care of yourself is something ever so important. And I like to take a look at it again on my daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. So for instance, on a daily basis, making a point to eat 3 square meals a day. Guess what? Physical and mental well-being, it makes a difference. When you wake up and you eat your breakfast, you feel a lot better. Calories equal energy. So when you eat, you have more energy. And when you have more energy, you feel better, you're more optimistic, you're able to talk to different people, you think more clearly, and everything just goes along more smoothly from that point forward. So make a point to eat your meals, and especially if you're an individual who has lunch breaks at work that you're not taking, I encourage you to take those lunch breaks. It's ever so important to take that time out because guess what? We have a rhythm inside us that about every 90 minutes or so, we need to take a break and we need to reset. Every 90 minutes, a short break. About every 3 hours or so, we should do a little bit longer of a break. And if you're somebody who's working 8, 10-hour or longer day, it's really important to take that time out for lunch, especially when you're entitled to it, be able to get away for a little bit, and that's going to be the type of thing that carries you throughout your day. There's always simple little things that you could do. You know, in the car, I love listening to music. That's a great way for me to be able to wind down. Like listening to audiobooks, perhaps when I'm going in to speak with a client and need to learn a little bit more. You know, it makes fulfilling in the time that I'm in the car. And if you have a hands-free set, don't talk on your cell phone, don't text on your cell phone and drive. But if you have a hands-free set, you can even have conversations with people so long as you keep it safe. Make the most of the time. And guess what? When you come home, there's nothing wrong with just enjoying some time to relax. There's nothing wrong with watching a silly TV show. Those are the types of things you can do on a daily basis. And can also include prayer, spending time with your family, you know, going out and working out at the gym, going and enjoying, you know, something that's outside, reading a book at the library and so on and so forth. For each of us, it's different. And on a weekly basis, doing something that might be a little bit bigger, going out for a nice dinner if you can, going out to a movie if you can, actually visiting a friend or a relative. On a monthly basis, perhaps doing something that's a little bit bigger. Good. So concluding with the wellness piece, again, doing something for yourself, whatever it is, and it looks different for everybody, that you do on a daily basis, perhaps something bigger on a weekly basis, something bigger on a monthly, or perhaps something even larger on the annual basis. Now, like I said in the very beginning, this is a show that's for you, and I want it to be something that's created essentially by you. Now, what that means is I would like to open up the opportunity for Bolingbrook residents or other individuals in the local communities to be able to reach out to me and be able to present me with different topics that you would like to have discussed while on the show. And with that, some of you, if you're interested and it's fitting for the show, would like to actually invite you to come on here. So this first episode, I did a lot of talking at you, and I'm going to be honest, it feels a little bit awkward just speaking to the camera by myself, and I think I do a lot better working with other people. So this is the opportunity for you to be able to come on, have your voice heard, and we could talk about a variety of different mental health topics, or you can just ask me whatever types of questions that you have. I'm going to share, and you'll be able to see it here. My email address for reaching out is dr.mglowiak@gmail.com. So if you would, please feel free to send me an email, let me know your name, your contact information, and what it is that you would like to have discussed on the show, and if you are actually somebody who would be interested in talking about it. Now, this isn't going to be an opportunity for me to actually go on and do a counseling session for you. That's something that we do want to keep confidential, and I'm not going to get into. However, you can come in, you could share your story, and I could share all the expertise that I have, and I would also like to be able to provide any additional resources that I have for you to be able to help you or somebody else who you're concerned with be able to find the help that's absolutely necessary. Some of the other things I would like to do as well is open up this opportunity to first responders or other people who are actually working in the mental health field or people who are actually seeing individuals in the community who are struggling with different things. Come on and share your experience, and please feel free to be able to ask me any of the questions that you do have. Again, this is your opportunity. I'm trying to do something a little bit different here. And some of the different topics that we can talk about, just to name a few, we could discuss, major depressive disorder. We can talk about anxiety. We could talk about some of the, different types of psychotic disorders, including schizophrenia and so on. We need to discuss, actually I don't like that list, so I'm giving, you can scratch that. Okay, so some of the different topics that we can actually talk about here, that extend well beyond the mental health disorders, because again, I don't want this to be something that's necessarily about being diagnosed with anything, but I'd like you to be able to talk about some of those typical life stressors that you're facing. For instance, becoming a new parent. Postpartum depression is another major topic. Suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation. Talking about social media, a lot of different topics that we can talk about there. School-place bullying, workplace bullying, occupational opportunities, feeling stress within the community in which you're living in. Perhaps you're in an interracial marriage and you're having some stressors dealing with trying to adjust culturally. Perhaps the family isn't accepting of it. We could talk about different types of racial tensions. We can talk about some of the stress of living in today's type of environment, a very high-paced environment where we're expected to do a bunch of different types of things at once. We can talk about some of the stress about being able to go out into public places and having to fear about whether or not the school is going to be shot or the church or mosque, temple of worship is going to be shot. These are real-life issues that people are facing on a daily basis, and I want you to be able to come out and feel comfortable talking about them. So again, please feel free to reach out to me, dr.mglowiak@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll be sure to respond as quickly as possible. And our goal is to be able to host this show every other week for a half hour. And should it catch on, who knows, maybe it'll be something that becomes more frequent and for longer durations of time. And for now, I sign off. Dr. Matt Glowiak, thank you for listening to me, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.